I was 23 when I thought my life was over. I had just launched my first business, a small online clothing store. It wasn't just a side project or a casual experiment. It was my dream. I spent months designing the website, testing different styles, and making sure everything looked perfect. I was convinced that success was inevitable. I had read every business book I could get my hands on. I followed every self-help guru on social media. I studied the habits of billionaires, convinced that if I just worked hard enough, success would follow. The first week, I got a few sales, mostly from friends and family. That was expected. Give it time, I told myself. The real customers would come soon. But they didn't. Weeks passed, and the reality of business hit me hard. The traffic to my website was almost non-existent. The social media ads I spent money on didn't convert. I barely had enough orders to break even, let alone turn a profit. 6 months in, I was drowning in credit card debt, barely making rent, and too embarrassed to admit that my big dream was falling apart. Every morning, I woke up with a sinking feeling in my stomach, dreading what I'd see when I checked my bank balance. One night, after seeing I had only $42 left in my account, I whispered to myself, maybe I'm just not meant to succeed. I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The next morning, I made a decision, shutting down the business. I told myself that I had tried my best, but some people just weren't meant to be entrepreneurs. Maybe I was one of them. As I started closing things out, I checked my email. Among the usual spam and promotional messages was a short email from a woman named Diane. She had placed an order a week earlier, and I had completely forgotten to ship it. Her email was short, but direct. Hey, I still haven't received my order. Should I be worried? My stomach twisted. I had been so caught up in my failures that I had neglected my responsibilities. Feeling like an absolute failure, I immediately refunded her money and sent her an apology. A few minutes later, she replied, "Thanks for the refund, but I really wanted the shirt. It was a gift for my brother. I loved your designs." I stared at her response for a long time. Despite all my failures, someone actually cared about what I had created. That one sentence changed everything. For 6 months, I had been obsessed with numbers, profits, losses, website traffic, but I had never really thought about the people behind my products. I had been so focused on avoiding failure that I had never stopped to consider what I could learn from it. That night, instead of shutting down my business, I sat down and wrote out every mistake I had made. I focused too much on trying to be perfect instead of improving over time. I spent months fine-tuning my website instead of getting real customer feedback. I ignored marketing, thinking customers would magically appear. Just because I built something didn't mean people would find it. I tried to do everything alone, afraid to ask for help. I had refused to reach out to people who had already succeeded, thinking I had to figure it out all on my own. As I wrote out my mistakes, I realized something. Failure wasn't the enemy. Avoiding failure was. I had spent so much time trying not to fail that I had never given myself the chance to grow. The next morning, I emailed Diane back. "Would you still like the shirt? I can send it to you for free." She replied, excited, and even asked if I had more designs coming soon. I used the opportunity to ask her for feedback. "What made you want to buy from me in the first place?" She told me she loved the designs, but had never seen my brand anywhere before. "I only found you because my friend randomly shared your page," she admitted. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have known you existed." That was the moment it clicked. My failure wasn't because my business idea was bad. It was because I had never truly learned how to reach people. I had been running from my failures instead of learning from them. Instead of quitting, I decided to start over. But this time, I would embrace failure instead of fearing it. I made 2 big changes. First, I stopped trying to be perfect and started focusing on improvement. I put my energy into learning marketing and reaching out to customers, rather than obsessing over minor website tweaks. Second, I asked for help. I connected with an experienced e-commerce mentor who gave me guidance on what actually worked. Within 6 months, my sales had doubled. Within a year, I was making a full-time income from my business. The same venture that had once made me feel like a failure had now become a success, because I was finally willing to learn from my mistakes. Looking back, I realized that failure didn't destroy me. It built me. It forced me to recognize my blind spots. It made me stronger, smarter, and more resilient. And most importantly, it showed me that failure is never the end. It's just part of the process. If you're failing right now, don't run from it. Learn from it, because the most successful people aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail, learn, and keep going.